Mensuri Gakuse, thank you for tuning in to Mizuchi Dojo Radio, a weekly podcast featuring discussions between the best martial artists in Western New York on a variety of martial arts concepts. I'm your host, Bill Reynolds, and joining me today are these panelists. We have Kris Davison, training since 2014, 4th degree black belt in ITF Tae Kwon Do. We also have Rob Guida, training since 2010, 2nd degree black belt in Kempo Karate, owner-operator of MSD Kempo Karate. Also, we have
we can't read
Dylan Pinkham, who's been trained since he was 15 years old, 5th degree black belt in karate and owner of the Hana Center of Martial Arts. With him is Bill Lolo, trained since 2021, green belt in Muliway. And we have Jake Rossler, trained since 2005, 4th degree black belt in ITF Tae Kwon Do. If you want, there's more information about these panelists in our show notes. Today's topic, peacocking in the martial arts. Peacocking is a term that basically means to display yourself, usually through a distinctive manner. Could be with even your clothing or how you move about and how you talk. But in the context of martial arts, it could be the uniform you wear. It could be how you use your body to and or your mouth to attract attention and basically draw attention to oneself and extraneous to what you need to do as a martial artist. So that's peacocking as it could apply to the martial arts. And so the question to the panel this evening is, what do you think about peacocking? And as it occurs in the martial arts, if you haven't observed it, then of course you can only respond abstractly to this. But I'll say for those of you who have, do you think it should be encouraged, discouraged, or just ignored? This is what I want to get at tonight. I'll start us off a little bit. So I'll say hajime to me. I see this as occurring both in throughout a person's martial arts. I watch people both in training situations as well as in competition, and I think sometimes it's just annoying to me wherever I see it. And this to give you a sense of what I see as peacocking as an example is loose hands when doing technique. So, for example, I was trained that if I do a palm heel strike to somebody, I should keep my fingers and my thumb tight all together so that way, just in case I end up missing with my palm heel and I hit on the thumb or I hit on the finger, they don't get hyperextended easily. Versus if I was to do it loosely and then possibly more readily damage myself. And so, but I was also told that between techniques, I should be loose. So can my fingers be loose when I'm not actually applying a palm heel strike? Can I have like sort of open hands, but my fingers are open? Sure, why not? But what I'll sometimes see when people are doing basics, when I see them doing forms, and sometimes if they don't wear gloves and they're doing like, sparring or fighting without gloves, I'll see like they'll have their fingers in like some like gestures, like they're doing magic or they're at a rock show or something. They're like, they got their fingers in all sorts of interesting formations. And I feel like, sometimes I'll see people like wave their fingers around like they're doing magic. And so that's one form. Like, I feel like people are doing that maybe because it feels cool. I don't know, but I think they're doing it because they think it looks cool. And so they put these like finger gestures and hold their hands in these odd formations as peacocking. I remember for when I was in Shotokan and we were fighting, Very formal. They called it Ippon Kumite, and it was just like, you would stand across from each other, and then one person was directed to attack, and the other person was to defend. It wasn't like free or semi-free sparring. And but we didn't wear gear either. It was just, bare hands and bare feet.
That
And
explains a lot.
yeah. And so then I was holding my hand out, and the instructor said Hajime, and immediately the guy kicked me in my hand, and he kicked me where my hand was like in this like semi-open gesture, and hyperextended my two of my fingers. It's a lesson that I remember from there on then, that like if I'm going into a fighting situation, generally if I have a guard hand up and out, it's going to be in a tight open hand, or it's going to be in a fist, because I'm not going to ever hold loose fingers out in front of somebody to like try to destroy ever again. Um, Getting maybe to something Jake said before we started recording this episode, definitely I see it in competition. I'll see people like, like I was trained in performing ki, and so that's just this like, brief um exhalation and direction of energy. And if you want, you can apply a sound to it that's audible, but usually it's supposed to be with some intent. It's not a random noise. It's a specific noise. And I think again, like we talked about this in another episode, probably coming from its use in kendo, people have taken to doing what we would call in karate, we'd call it a kakegoe, just sort of a martial scream that's sort of like, the roar of a lion triumphant, something like that. It's not about an expression of a directed energy as much as it is something to like, I don't know, get attention to yourself, impress or intimidate, or something like that. I see that as peacocking. Now, do I think it should be encouraged or discouraged or ignored? I'm sure you can tell, and Jake was predicting this earlier. I'm all for discouraging it. I think it has no place in martial arts, but also I'm more directed towards self-defense, and I wouldn't want my students after they punch somebody to pause for a moment to scream aloud, and just that's all they're doing. They're just like, I don't know how that would have a place in self-defense, unless they were yelling really loud, "Police!" Okay, then I could sort of get that sort of kake go. So that's my opening thoughts. Dylan, uh, you got your camera off, but that's cool because nobody can tell in the podcast thing. Oh,
There
there.
you go.
All right. Opening thoughts on peacocking in the martial arts. Do you think it happens? And if it does, is this something that you encourage, discourage, or just generally ignore?
Oh, um, I don't know. Um, I guess I see it. I see it. I see it per your definition. I see it in sport, in competition. I see it in sports sparring. Um, it's sport. Um, I'm guilty of having my hands in a open position. That's just the way that I was taught. Um, Trying to, I don't look at it as peacocking. If my hands are here, I don't look at it as peacocking. I look at it as, hey, my hands are up, but they're in a non-threatening, de-escalating kind of stance. If I make a fist, that works too, right? Um,
Oh, but just to clarify, what I was referring to, Dylan, was that you have open hands when you're actually applying your knife hand strike or your palm heel strike, not when you're sort of like in a ready position. Because I was told to be loose, be ready. It's only when I was like sparring, and like, oh, if I go into a matching situation, I'm no longer going to be with loose hands in front. I'm going to know this guy means business, and I'm going to put my hands into
right.
something more defensive. But yeah, so no, that's I don't see that as peacocking, just being in a ready position with your hands sort of loose and open.
Yeah. So like I said, with that, yeah, I see it in sport and tournament, and when forms and katas are being done, and Yeah, at that point, it's a show. A tournament it's a show. It's a, you're trying to get points. You're trying to be flashier than the guy in front. Why are we studying martial arts? Why are we studying the art? Are we studying it to earn medals at a tournament? Or are we studying it for real life? Are we studying, so that's my opening.
Okay. Uh, Bill.
So, being that I'm a student of Dylan's, um, I hope he doesn't get mad at me. I think he likes it in a way, but
Interesting.
I think it's maybe just because of my time that I spend with him is a lot of the times with the kids' classes. And he tells the kids all the time, this isn't a library, this is a martial arts studio. Be heard. And it maybe he doesn't think of it as peacocking, and it probably isn't, but he likes to get them to be a little bit loud if they can. Because
Oh,
I
the
think,
loud ki.
yeah, because I think like we talked about earlier, is that it's kind of embarrassing when you're doing kata in front of a bunch of people. But if you're practicing, a form or a defense or something like that, and you're just loud saying stop or kia, I think they're both good.
Hmm. Well, and I don't, obviously I'm not in your class, so I don't know, but I will say that in a lot of classes I see people do loud kiais, and that doesn't make it a kakegoe just because they're screaming.
Yeah,
I would say that, like, especially with children, trying to get, but even adults, just trying to make them do an audible, you sort of have to like force it to
yeah,
be
yeah,
really
because it's
audible.
hard. It's hard.
And the kakegoe, they're just so you watch like a high level competition, and what you like I said, a regular ki, like the person throws the hit, and I'll say this away from my microphone. They'll go like, hiya, right? Hiya. It's still a ki. This is more of a kakegoe. Hiya. It's like it goes a little bit longer than necessary. I usually see like when I watch videos that people share with me, somebody will like do a downward punch and they'll be in like in some sort of like extended stance that, doesn't look like it looks like very good gymnastically, but nothing that I would ever want to be caught in. And they're down there for a moment, paused and yelling. And looking very ugly in their face, just very like,
Yeah, for
you
like
know.
the competitions, and you see a lot of it on like YouTube
Yes,
or
in
Facebook.
competitions. So
It's
I don't usually
a
see
lot of
any
fun.
instructors telling their kids to do that kind of stuff. It's just
Yeah.
like, stand there and scream for a while. You'd have greater tolerance than me. Um, yeah, I don't know. Is that about right? I'm done. I just want to give you a chance to respond to that. Is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah. So one of the ways that one of the ways that I have been have been training all my students is um, three strikes, three words. Don't touch me.
Hmm.
For each word, there's a strike, and that is their audible. I'm actively trying to get away from the ki, but again, it's so ingrained in my mental that that's sometimes what I go to. So
Oh, you
as
mean
I
like when you say Kia, getting away from Kia, do you mean like what seems like just a nonsense syllable?
as audible.
A nonsense
Uh,
audible. Yeah.
so yeah, so I want to change my using ki into don't touch me or don't touch me again, and add those words and those commands to those strikes.
I
So
think you might still be doing Ki then. Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, but I'm not saying ki. I'm there. There's purpose and there's reason behind it.
Right. Well, I just like when we talk about cultural appropriation. So like ki just means energy directed outward, and the noise that you're supposed to make was not. You weren't supposed to say ki. You were supposed to say a word that meant something in Japanese, sort of like what you're saying, like
So then
"don't
I'm
touch
doing.
me."
So then,
Uh,
then I'm doing it right.
right, because they're like if I said ace as my ki in Japanese, I'm saying penetrate. I'm penetrating. And if I said aya, I'm draining you of energy. The actual sounds that were chosen were had an intent, a meaning behind them. It wasn't just they weren't just supposed to make a vowel noise. That's what I was at one school, and they said just pick a vowel A I O U E and just make that noise, and there you go. And it was that's your ki, and I was like okay. That's ludicrous, but I get it. Again, you're just trying to make somebody like channel the energy. Like when I was at a conference with a Shaolin monk, and he taught us a form, and he said, "I know you guys here like to yell really loud with your ki eyes, but for us, our ki eyes are quiet." And that really is because ki is an intent. It's a thought of like I'm directing my energy in this manner towards this other person. The noise that you make is secondary to the whole thing, but it's that meaning's been lost, I think, in a lot of schools. They don't understand that differentiation. Okay, moving on to Jake. Opening thoughts.
The older I get, the less I care about what other people do. Um, Somebody wants to peacock.
Ignore, he says.
Hey,
Ignore.
man, go for it. All the more power to you. My issue comes with someone who peacocks and then has an ego that goes with it. Um, but I mean, like, hey, you want to wear your candy cane belt all the time? Sure, do your thing. You want to in WT for competitors, I think that are black belts over 60, they get a gold dobok top. Sure, you want to wear a gold
Oh,
top? Do your thing. It looks sweet.
gold. Wow.
Yeah. Chris is making faces. I sent it to him, told him he should start wearing it at tournaments. He said
I
no.
totally want a gold top.
I'll send it to you again.
Yes.
Anyway,
I'm all
You
yeah,
have
for
I
it.
my
mean,
address,
I
right?
want to see
Just
Chris.
mail it.
for you get the people doing sport forms and they're yelling at the top of their lungs, face turned up towards the ceiling.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it cringe? Yeah. Do I
yeah.
care? No. I mean, in
So
some
funny.
some ways, it's actually it's better. I mean, in competition, it's part of the meta. If you don't do that, you're not going to score as well. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so do it there.
So
Uh,
true.
we were, Dylan was just talking about using specific words rather than just a noise when somebody's shouting out, especially the kids. Yeah, I mean, any noise you make is going to draw attention, and if it is, so don't touch me. You hear somebody, any responsible adult who hears the kid yelling that, yeah, they're gonna turn and look to see what's going on. I mean, I would, I think you'd be very hard pressed if somebody just yells "Aya" in the street. Every man and every man that can hear that is going to turn and look to see what's going on because somebody said "Aya." There's something going down. Uh, but yeah, I mean, in a self defense, more practical aspect, it makes sense to do it that way as well. But yeah, I mean, as long as like I said, as long as you're not full of ego with your peacocking, do your thing, man.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying, so it sounds you're saying that you're differentiating what could be attention getting, but it's because that's how you were trained to do it as a part of perhaps even specifically to be competitive in a competition that is expecting those types of behaviors versus doing this because you're strictly doing it to draw attention to yourself and look at me because you think you're all that.
Kind of. I mean, if anybody spent any time with me in the summer, the shirts I wear are specifically to draw attention.
Oh yeah, man. I would say
What do you
guns
wear?
out with Jake.
All sorts of Hawaiian shirts, Rob. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with somebody doing something just to draw attention to themselves. But if you're walking around with, I'm going to use the candy cane belt example again, be like,
Mm-mm.
oh, I'm the highest ranking person in this room. Everybody should bow to me, even in the bathroom. I don't have time for that.
Darn. I'm gonna start wearing a red belt just so that they can't say that to me.
For the record, I was in slacks and a polo shirt.
Wow. Okay. Well, Robert, how about you? Thoughts on peacocking?
Yeah, I had no idea what you were talking about originally, and now that I know, so it's interesting. I hated it forever. Like I used to make fun of those people and say, and sorry, Chris and Jake, those goddamn Taekwondo people. All they do is scream and
Oh,
yell and kick and like it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, why are we still screaming? And okay, and then I sat down with I sat down with the Canes, Ron and Nick Kane, and I had a long talk with them about like what's expected at tournaments and why they're yelling and why they're doing what they're doing and how to be successful. And the fact is, like Jake said, if you want to be successful doing a form and you want to try to go to the regional national level, you have to do that. And yes, it's peacocking, and yes, it's stupid, and yes, it's ridiculous, and yes, none of us really like it if we're honest with each other. If you don't do it, you're not winning. So you have to do it. And then even goes part of that with sparring. When you're sparring and you're sitting there, I'm like, well, why are you screaming like a madman when you do a regular punch? He's like, because I'm drawing the judge's attention to the fact that I hit him.
Mm.
Because and now that I've judged for years, I recognize the fact that, and if we're all honest, we can't pay attention 100% of the time. So when you hear that crazy scream, you're like, point,
Mm.
because you assume somebody got hit. And so I see the logic, I understand the logic. Now I teach it because if you look, I want success for my students. And to be successful, this is what they have to do. Right or wrong, this is what they have to do. And so, yes, it's peacocking, and yes, it's ridiculous, and yes, it's unnecessary. But if they want to be champions and they want to be in regional and national champions, then that's what they
Mm.
have to do.
Interesting. Very interesting point. Lord Master Christopher,
And
are,
Poobah.
yes, opening thoughts.
So opening thoughts. I think there's there's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot of context I think that needs to be laid out.
Chris,
Um,
this is the internet. There's no room for nuance.
this is a
Thank you,
podcast, and
Jake.
there
That was
is
great.
room for nuance. So like Rob said, if you want to reach some level of notoriety on the regional or national scale, that's how you do it. If you don't do it, everyone else is doing it. You're not going to score as well. You're not going to be successful. That's in that particular domain of competition. I've been to some smaller tournaments that are very traditional, where someone who had I won't use names, but we'll probably all know who I'm talking about. I've been to a tournament where this young man has the most phenomenal bow form you'll ever see ever. Flips and tricks and can twirl it across his chest and throw it 30 feet in the air and catch it. And he's fantastic. But at a traditional tournament, he didn't win because it was a non-traditional form.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is I don't like all the herky jerky stuff. I prefer a much more traditional kata or weapons form where there's you're not flipping your sword in the air. I prefer kata, especially weapons kata, that reflects moves that you could do in a fight and not get killed. Like if we're sword fighting and I decide I'm just going to throw it in the air, you're going to stab me through my face. So, I don't like that. I don't like the screaming at the top of your lungs. There, I don't know if we can call this peacocking or just maybe how forms were taught. There's certain kempo forms where it seems every other move there's a key up. So you're like kiai, kiai, kiai. That drives
No,
me up the wall, but maybe that's how it's supposed to be.
that's not how it's supposed to be. That's
Okay.
my fault trying to keep up with you Taekwondo people who expect kiais all the time. There are no kiais in Kempo.
Oh, well, I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm trying to foster discussion.
Uh,
No, no,
I'm
no,
I'm taking responsibility. That's my fault, Chris. I tried to keep up with
Not just you, sir. I've even Hanshi Hillman's kids do the same thing.
no.
same thing, same reason. They're trying to keep
Okay.
up with you Taekwondo people.
All right. Okay. Sure. 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 Our forms only have 3 key ups in them. Anyway. Um, so like I said, I think there's some levels here as far as if you're going to compete on the national level, peacocking is required. At
Mm.
at traditional, quote unquote, traditional tournaments, I think all that would be detrimental to your score and your performance. Um,
He's gonna have a good point too, Bill, because like that's why we have different divisions. That's why there's traditional divisions and non-traditional divisions because those traditional divisions don't have that peacocking.
Yeah,
And
and
and and
I
it's
prefer those.
yeah, and they're discouraged. I mean, you shouldn't be doing it.
Right. I think that one thing I would it was interesting to me, and maybe you guys noticed this yourself. Um, when the Olympics were in Japan, karate was a one of the competitive sports. You should notice that you haven't seen it since. And when I visited
Taekwondo
Okinawa,
is still in the Olympics, by the way.
right, and there's a reason why karate isn't. And I talked when I said when I went to Okinawa and I spoke to the people there, I interviewed a 10th degree black belt in Shorin, which is one of the like of karate forms that's like one of the big ones. Like everybody in America sort of Goju-ryu because of Karate Kid. Um, yeah, that's another big one. Yeah. But what they said is very repetitively, more than once to me while I was there, they said essentially the reason why karate is no longer in the Olympics is because the majority of karate disagreed with the requirements or the pulls that contemporary martial arts asks for with regard to what we're calling tonight peacocking. They just would say, more simple and in pidgin English, no, 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 not karate. We do self-defense. We do self-defense. And that's a very classical way of thinking about it. That's why they don't do it anymore because they decided that, as you guys point out, if you want to compete on the national stage, the world stage, that's a part of the game. You got to like have the crazy yells. You've got to do like moves that have nothing to do with self-defense, but are all about demonstrating poise and gymnastics and um,
Skill,
I don't know, something, you know,
skill, you just
some sort
skillfulness.
different skills, right? Like
Yeah,
baton twirling. You're gonna show that I can do baton twirling in addition to my martial arts. And so
right.
that's great. I'd love to see them in color guard or some sort of, marching band someday. That's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, if you're not into that, then you can't compete. And they said we're not going to compete
Mhm.
under those rules. Um, yeah, so I
That's
think
really
that's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
That's interesting, Bill. That really is.
Yeah, so I think you guys have made that point very clear. And I think but that is another option, of course, is that you can just say, it reminds me of for those of you who are old enough to remember War Games, when the supercomputer said, it determined that the best way to win this game was to not play. And I think that's what the karate schools decided in Japan. They just said, we're not doing that. We're not going to play this game. There's another one. If you guys are interested in some reading, there's a book called Conversations with a Master. Um, and what was
Did
fun
Kris
and
write that?
no, I know, no, he's Lord Master. It was in
I wrote the
Conversations with the Lord
intro.
Master. Yeah. Yeah, but in Conversations with the Master, part of the story got at this idea that in Japan, in judo, a guy came from Europe and he beat all the Japanese masters in judo and won the gold. And they were mortified. The Japanese see judo as their martial art, and they sent their television station people because I think Japan only has one television station, NHK. I'm not sure.
NHK.
Yeah, and they sent them to Europe, and they interviewed the guy, and he goes, "How did you beat us at our own game?" And he said to them, "Because I train in judo." And they're like, "What?" And basically he said, I train exactly to the tenets of how to conduct judo. I didn't train to do competitive judo. And that's how I beat these other guys because while they're worrying about doing competitive moves that would look good to judges, this guy was doing the bare minimum basics, and then just crushing them. And a very interesting statement, So, but again, what do you want? I guess in that case, you can still train classically, traditionally, and win in competition, But I think for the most part nowadays, you're not. If you try to hold to your things like in our karate system, our forms, our katas can have usually two ki points, two audibles, but sometimes only one and sometimes none. And the students are also instructed you can ki as much as you want throughout the kata. You don't always have to make audibles. And you can make audibles as much as you want or as little as you want, except for the two designated ki audible points. And the black belts, as a part of their preparation for their black belt grading, were told when we get to the kata portion of the exam, be prepared to tell me why an audible ki occurs at a certain point in the kata. Why is that one insisted as a minimum audible ki point? And they have to know why it's occurring there and then. Versus you arguably everywhere and anywhere. You know, why that one? So, it's a very different mindset. And you're not going to win competitions with that kind of mindset. If you're thinking, I did this ki at this very specific point for this very specific reason, the judges are probably looking at their phone because you're just not keeping their attention. Um, it's why I think I tried to like judge a couple times at local competitions, and I thought in my head, I am detracting points away from people from doing moves that I think are unnecessary or detracting from the form. And I don't think I'm guessing the other judges are not doing this. I don't think I'm judging on the same scale. So I was just like, I don't need to do that. I'm just not going to do this anymore. Um,
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Bill. You'd be a great judge.
oh,
It's just a matter of understanding the finer points of like what you just said. You can't take points away from people kiai.
mm, right. Or Kakai going if I think that's what they did instead.
Right. Or
Right. Yeah.
you can't give them points for kiai, right? I mean,
Mm.
that's just I had a guy look at me and say he took points away from one of my girls because she said kiai and kiai means to yell, and that's ridiculous. And I almost got in a fight with a guy. I'm like, you're asking this 10-year-old girl you're taking points away from her because she said ki. I picked that word because it's easy.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. And Ki doesn't mean to yell, but yes, but that's certainly what it seems to mean to people.
yeah.
Um, we're coming up on time. Gentlemen, closing thoughts, final thoughts that you want to share with our listening audience before we wrap this up.
Just one thing, and I think it's really important. Like you have to decide what you want in life and how and you have to decide what you want, not what your school wants, what you want. If you want to compete at a certain level, you have to be able to do that type of peacocking.
Hmm,
And if you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. Then
hmm,
stay in traditional forms and don't do it.
hmm,
Yeah.
But
Peacocking.
as a teacher, I have to teach both because I have students who want both.
hmm. Yeah, no, I asked my students specifically. I said, "Do you want to be prepared for competition? If so,
Yeah.
we have some additional material you got to consider." And fortunately, we have Lord Master Christopher as well as Master Jake coming in sometimes and helping my students understand what is being expected of people if they were to go to a sport competition fighting. Um, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
with the MA tour, I don't even think I can represent that now. I
that's because
mean,
we haven't earned our purple shirt yet, Chris.
Guys,
Mm.
you're being
You
crazy.
guys, man, you got the bling, gold tops,
They're
purple
they're
shirts. What's going on over
they're
there?
they're just
Oh,
haters right now because they don't have their purple polo shirts.
I'm salty about the purple shirt. Absolutely. No, but you know what? Peacocking. I encourage it. The more the better.
Except
Just
for
I'll
don't.
if
get you a
they're
purple shirt.
egotistical, you said.
What's
Unless it
that?
comes from a place of ego, I thought you
Well, that's
said.
what I was about to say. Yeah, I encourage it. The more the better. Just don't think that, everybody, no pun intended, has to bow down to you because whatever peacocking you're displaying makes you better than them.
Hmm. Hmm.
so you don't want them to display an ego, or you don't want them to show confidence.
Ooh.
Confidence is fine, right? But if you're, and I'm Bill, what's higher, a candy cane belt or a solid red belt?
Solid red.
Okay. So if I walk into a competition and I see a karate master, I don't know if master is the right term, a high-ranking karate black belt with a solid red belt walking around,
If they have a red
I
belt, they are a grandmaster for sure.
grandmaster, right? If I can't talk to him like a person, he has too much ego.
Hmm. Hmm.
Good point.
Yeah. Agreed.
There's a very specific Taekwondo school owner in the area, Kris, who does this, who acts the same way.
Whatever do you mean, sir?
Who are you talking about?
I guess for our listening audience, you have to come to Western New York if you want to find out the what the Western New York wives of martial arts are doing. Dylan Sensei, Bill, any final thoughts?
You guys are muted.
Yeah, no, nothing worse than dead air or muted air. Yeah, I can't hear you. Very good. There we go.
I think the sport peacocking kind of gives martial arts a bad name. I think that a lot of the joke videos you see about things online and the like, if I tell somebody that I know that doesn't know that I do martial arts and I do martial arts, they'll always give me one of those crazy kiosk sounds. And they use it as a joke. It's almost like it's an avenue to pick fun at something that somebody else finds very rewarding. So in a way, I think it's kind of a bad thing that people do it in public and get rewarded for it in competitions.
I will say this though, nobody is doing, at least I've yet to be to a competition where anyone is doing what we refer to as kokoro no mai, which is basically trying to throw people off to disrupt them. The one you would be most familiar with is the ki associated with Bruce Lee. This sort of like whoa, it's intended, yeah, it's intended to make you like go what the heck, and throw you off your game. That would be amazing if people did that at competition. I'd love it.
I think you've seen it, sir. I think we were watching a sparring demonstration once where a gentleman, as he was leaping out of the ring, did something very akin to that. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. I'm gonna have to close us off here, gentlemen. Great work, but Yame. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, listeners, for your attention. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, and you can share them to our threads, Mizuchi_dojo, or you can email us at mizuchi.dojo.hanbu@gmail.com. Also, check out our show notes, and you'll be able to find contact information for our various panelists if you want to direct your comments to them directly. Also, please consider supporting this podcast by subscribing via our Patreon. For $1 a month, you'll not only help keep this podcast on the air, but our $1 subscribers can vote on what topic they want the panel to discuss in the next recording session. Higher contributors can have their feedback read on air, and even higher contributors can get a regular shout out for the martial arts school of their choice. You can find more information about this in our show notes, as well as our Patreon page. Mata Yasai.